What's up, everybody? Not a Journalist here with Erik T. Mullins. Erik, how you doing, man?
Hey, man.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be speaking with you today, good sir.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome. It's my first day, though, so if I don't know when to cue in with my responses or if I go overboard, feel free to be like, hold up there.
This isn't your first podcast, though. You've been on our show in the past. Well, actually, Geektastic Cypher, but...
Yeah, and it was pretty random. Like, I was just kind of there for, like, I think, like, 4 minutes for, like, the intro thing, and then afterwards I had to go back to my table
Yeah,
at the
yes.
convention.
Yes, Retro Expo for all of you guys who are tuned in, and that was the first time. If you listen to Geektastic Cypher, we've done specials at Retro Expo. Shout-outs to Proto Man, and it was a lot of fun, and you got to sit in and be a dope guest and geek out with us and talk shop and all that jazz, and we definitely appreciate it. Man, I just noticed all you guys have these cool chairs. Like, yesterday I was talking with Cliff Caporale from Montreal Comic-Con, and he had like a red racing chair like that, and now you have this one.
Oh, man, I've got, like, a story about this chair.
Yo, man, I used to work in furniture. Tell me. I actually like chair stories, as weird as
All
that
right,
sounds.
so years ago, like let's say around like 2006, I went to like a Staples and picked myself up the fanciest chair they had there for computers, thinking this is it.
Yeah.
This chair is going to be good for my back and my posture and everything while I draw for like 12 hours a day.
Okay.
And boy, oh boy, was it not.
I was going to tell you.
And I really, like, I kept that chair forever. There was actually, like, a bar going through where, like, my butt was, and I was like, this is so uncomfortable. Like, once that cushion was gone, it was gone. And it was just, I would have to put regular cushions in there, and it was just so terrible. And then at one point, I was like, okay, enough's enough. And this is about 2 years ago. So I really had that bad chair for a long time, and it messed me up big time. And then I was like, I'm going to buy a good chair. I'm going to spend the money, and I can't, like, tell you how much it's worth it. Like, and not only that, I do my homework with everything in life too. I wouldn't just go to a random shop and be like, I'll take that one. It looks pretty. No, I spend the time. Like, I'll really be like on the internet watching 50 reviews of every possible chair, and like, oh, well, if this one's for heavier set people, this one's for taller people, this one's for people that have longer legs than the average bean. So like, I did all that homework, and I found out that this chair was like the perfect chair for me, and I was like, oh man. And it was like, this is like an exclusive one they had made where it has like the armrests that can like move around, which was perfect, so I could put my my drawing tablet on the armrest, so I can like kind of move back and sit more comfortably while I'm drawing.
Oh, cool.
And and then like, so when I knew this was the chair I wanted, I was like, oh, it's gonna be hard finding this chair. And then I called the first place, and they straight up had one. And it was like 40% off, and I was like, yeah, what a win! So my whole life experience with this chair is pretty great, and since I've had it, it's like, oh man, less posture problems, less back problems, less knee problems. Like, really, like,
yeah.
It's like these little things that you don't think about, especially when you're like, oh, I don't want to spend like, almost $1,000 on a chair.
Of course.
You got to think that if you get a good chair, it's going to last you like 10 years, and your back will last you significantly longer.
So the chair that I'm sitting on, I don't know if people can see it, but
it looks like one of those IKEA chairs, or
maybe it's a chair from Bureau and Grow from Staples, just like you were talking about. Because I used to work at Staples, I used to sell chairs in the furniture department. So I'll tell you this: did you research before you bought the chair from them?
No, definitely not, man. Like, I was fresh out of like high school, or fresh out of college.
Yeah.
And I just finished like getting my degree in illustration design, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna like set myself up. I went there and I'm like, I'll take your fanciest chair, good sir. And I was just like, ha ha ha, putting myself in deeper debt as I got this chair that was just a terrible chair. Like, I'm sure had I looked up information, I would have gotten one that would have been better for me at the time.
Yeah, especially since, and I, it's not a trade secret that the whole point in the furniture sales department is just to make money, right? So the guy saw you and you're just like, I want the best chair. And he's just like, oh, the best chair is this $400 Obus Form high back. Because I know what the best chair, I know exactly which chair they probably tried to sell you right off the bat. And then
Yeah.
when they realized that like, you were probably just like, okay, that's a good chair, but I mean, it's a little expensive. They were probably like, perfect. And then they like moved you down to like a second or third. And usually the third chair is the one that they're actually trying to sell you. Because it's that, dude, I'm telling you, everything is this whole tactic. It is ridiculous, the things that we're taught and how we're like shown to explain the chairs. And oh my God, one of the things they used to do was there'd be like promos every once in a while. They would give away trips to the store that sold the most of X product would get a trip to give away to the salesperson who sold the most of it. And we're talking like all-inclusive paid trips to like resorts and stuff like that. So from one week to the next, you'd go from selling like Canon paper by the ream to selling like HP paper, to selling some other Staples brand paper, to selling some other paper, and it's every week it changes because it's whoever's offering like the highest sales of this paper the store that sells the most of this paper will win the trip. Yeah.
Yeah, most companies are like that. Like when I was younger, I used to work for a bank, and it was the same thing. Like banks, you wouldn't know it, but like even like the tellers are always trying to sell you credit cards or lines of credits or things like that, and all of that clicks in. So there's like quotas too, which is something that like not working at a bank, I didn't know that there were quotas. And it's kind of like we got to keep hitting these numbers, and you'd be surprised at how often and how easy it was to go over it. It'd be like, hey bud, you want 10 grand?
Yeah,
here you go. And then like random people off the streets, hey you, get in here, I got 10 grand with your name on it. Of course it will be at 30%, but don't worry about that now. Let future you worry about that. He's a sucker. Let past you enjoy life.
I like that you're like, future you's a sucker.
Yeah. Let the past you have all the real fun.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, retail. What are some of the other jobs that you worked before you did illustration, if you don't mind me?
Oh man, well, actually, I'm kind of like somebody that I actually love working. And it sounds kind of weird, but I actually love working with people. So even when I was working illustration, I was doing contract work, and even at one point, I worked for a couple of years for MMA Elite. They're like the company that did like shorts and t-shirts for like UFC and stuff like that. So I did like drawings for them, and even you would just I'm very empathic, right? So I always put myself in the shoes of these people where I'm like, oh my gosh, if I walked out and somebody kind of like did me wrong like that, I would hate that place forever. So I'm like, I like to think that I get customers for life, but you know, like bosses like to see that bottom line, but not all of them are like that. Like right now I'm working at an EB Games, and like the crew I'm working with is amazing.
That's dope.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's really laid back and really chill. And again, it's kind of the same thing where you're like helping clients find games and stuff. It's the same thing where they're like, oh, I want this one. And you'll ask them what kind of games they like. And then you'll be like, no, sir, you're not going to like that one. Get this $10 used version of this game, and it'll be the best game of your life. And 90% of the time they come back and they're like, do you have more like this?
You know, that's one of the things that I respect about that specific field, working at EB Games and stuff like that, getting to be almost like a game curator for people. It's like when a kid goes to to the library or a bookstore for the first time, and they're less like, oh, I like fantasy and magic and this, and the person's just like, it sounds like you like Harry Potter. Now the machines do it, but you know, once upon a time, people were the actual ones that helped you based on their knowledge and your knowledge, and a fun conversation, as opposed to just typing in stuff and just seeing it spill out information.
And just to go back real quick on it, like, because drawing, I'm always alone drawing, so like I'll draw today 12 hours, draw tomorrow 12 hours, draw the day after 12 hours, and it's between 12 to 14 hours. And at one point I'm just like, I haven't seen anybody, I haven't talked to anybody, I'm going crazy. So like getting that break where I can just go and work at like a little part-time job, even if it's just like 10 hours a week, so I can be like, all right, I'm gonna mingle and talk to people. That's like, I love it. So this whole like quarantine thing has been like really doing a number on me.
I was just gonna ask you, based on what you just said, like, when you know, have you found yourself being more motivated to create because you're being almost forced to be home all the time?
At first, like, I really took advantage of the situation big time. Like, I did all these projects that I wanted to do for a long time, and it was pretty awesome. And then as time, like I'd say, like in the past 2 weeks, I've had a bit of a harder time staying as motivated as I usually do.
Yeah.
But I guess I make my own comic book, and every year I come out with a new issue, and I just finished it. And usually when I'm done, I like go out, I celebrate, I party it up for like half a month where I'm just
Yeah.
chilling with friends that I never get to see because I'm always working. And because I didn't get that, this past 2 weeks, I've basically been like live stream or communicating with them on like Discord and stuff like
Yeah.
that, and just building Gundam models or just playing Magic the Gather. I nerd out on everything. All right, so like, or just talking to them on Discord while I would be drawing, like anything, so that I feel like I'm less
Interacting.
alone.
Yeah. Well, you also have your wife that is an artist as well. Is she home with you
Yeah.
these days, or is she like? I'm imagining you guys are living together. So
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh man, imagine like we were married but not living together.
I
That'd be
know
rough.
someone who has that situation, and when the quarantine hit, they weren't able to get back to each other to quarantine together at the
Oh my
time.
gosh,
So they
that's
had
so hard.
so they had to stay separate. And then when one of them, because one of them was traveling at the time, and then when the other one, when they came back, because one of them works in a hospital and the other one was the one traveling. The one who worked in the hospital had to be really careful because they were afraid of getting other people sick. So they were just like, I want you to come home, but I think if you come home, I would have to quarantine with you for the 2 weeks or almost a month, because that person's going to come home for 2 weeks, and then they're concerned about getting something. So they were like, well, I should probably quarantine for 2 weeks extra just in case. And they
Oh
ended up
boy.
deciding, their partner ended up deciding, no, I'd rather you go to work because it's beneficial to help people right now. So they didn't see each other for like almost a month.
That's hard.
Yeah,
But
stuff like that. Yeah.
I do see my wife. It's just that she does a lot of painting, and she actually like she worked for Cirque du Soleil
Oh,
and
dope.
Combat at Canadien and like all these big companies for like sewing and stuff like that.
That's so cool.
And the school that she had gone to had contacted her because they wanted her to start teaching, and she was supposed to start mid-March
Hmm.
when everything got canceled.
Oh God.
So essentially, even though she's here, she's doing constant meetings and constantly setting up plans because I don't know if, like, for any of you that are from Montreal or Quebec, like our like Legault, the guy in charge of everything, is basically like next week everything's opening, so prepare yourself.
Yeah.
So everybody, all the teachers, like scrambling to prepare themselves, and then the next week he's like, "All right, we're not doing it. It's
Yeah.
next week," and then they have to change everything because they can't just keep using the same plan because the teachers don't always teach on the same days, and they have to
Yeah.
structure themselves accordingly. So
Oh,
then they'll like
shit.
make videos and stuff to show the students and think, okay, now we have to change everything. And he's been doing this nonstop since March. So
Yeah.
she's been working like crazy. So she's not with me as often as I would like, but
Yeah.
she's still there. And at night we're still hanging out and stuff like usual, I guess. It's just it's not anyway. It's better
Yeah.
than what some people got. I'll give
Yeah.
it that.
Yeah, but hats off to her, man. That like I feel like during this pandemic, one of the things that a lot of people, of course, hats off to all the people on the front line and whatnot, and they're hardworking. My partner's a nurse; she's hardworking, and she's out there, doing the job and being there. My mom's a nurse, doing the job, being there. I have a whole bunch of friends. Shout out to Mark Phillips, who tunes into the show pretty often. He's a nurse too. PAB, sorry. But then like your wife is still being an important part in helping teach people in a time where
Yeah.
like parents are finding it hard to try and do their job from home. Like they realize what teachers are putting in.
But she had actually, sorry to cut in real quick,
No,
but
of course, man.
because of her sewing skills, she's actually been making a lot of masks too, and she's
Oh,
just charging
yeah.
costs. So she's been, like, all of our friends and family, like she's just been busy making tons of them and just shipping them out and stuff like that. And like one of my best friends is on the front line as well, and so her as well. Like she was the first person that like my wife was like, I'm gonna make some for her immediately,
That's
and so
good.
she makes some and put little Zelda logos on it and stuff like that. 'Cause,
Yeah.
she's into that. And she's frontline, but she's one of the people that's the cleaning crew in the hospitals.
Oh, that's
So it's like, it's
As
a rough
important, buddy.
situation all these people are in.
Yeah. I mean, cleaning crew, if anything, they weirdly enough are in one of the most bizarre predicaments because cleaning crews have to go into places that like. So, for example, my partner is a nurse in with children and newborn babies and stuff, and that's a small area and almost no exposure, knock on wood, to the virus. But the cleaning crew works on every floor in every section of the hospital, constantly cleaning. So,
Yeah.
one day you might be working in a COVID section the entire day. And then, so hats off to your friend, man. That's really important. Next time you talk to her, tell her that, like, we appreciate that because
Yeah, definitely. I try to tell her every day.
yeah, man. Yeah. This stuff's important, and people are working really hard out there. Speaking of working really hard, you just mentioned it, but you didn't get to continue. Please tell us about the comic book. I know you've spoken to me about it on Geektastic Cypher, but for anyone who's new listening for the first time, what is Blight? I see the shirt.
Oh, yeah, sure. All right. So, yeah, I always represent. Every time I do, like, I kind of do live streaming every single Tuesday,
Dope.
and I take, like, mashup requests. Like, you would say Batman, and somebody would say a Ninja Turtle, and then I draw Ninja Turtle Batman. So, like, I do that every Tuesday, and so I made all these T-shirts thinking, oh, all these live streams that I do, I got to do that.
Yeah.
And really, it was, like, a minute before doing this with you, I was, like, wearing just some random shirt. I'm like, oh, I got to put that T-shirt on.
That's awesome.
But like I'm so like so many artists, I'm really bad at like promoting myself. Okay, so I have my own comic book. It's called Blythe.
Yeah.
And it's all about the first day of college for a bunch of extraterrestrials that live outside of the boundaries of what we consider time and space.
Dope.
And so I basically come out with a new issue every year. It's anywhere between like it's about 20 pages, but like last year was about 27, and this year's is going to be 38 or 39, so it's a little bigger.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like a big trade paperback that's got like 1 to 5 in it. And it's that's another thing. It's all in color, and I do all the writing. I self-publish it. I illustrate it, obviously. Like I just do everything, and so that's why it takes me so long to do one of these. And I got like an Etsy page, and I put everything up there. Oh, and for people that get one, I always draw little sketches on the inside like this.
That's so cool, man.
And if, like, basically, and it's not, like, I like to personalize it, too, so when someone buys one, I'm always like, pick out a character, and then I'll sketch out the character they chose.
Yeah.
For those of you that see me at conventions, I usually sell individual issues every year, and those ones I'll do the same thing, and I'll put, like, tons of exclusive stuff in it, so that way, I like to imagine, like, one day, when I'm like crazy popular and there's a TV show of my comic book, that those individual issues that I've only made like 70 of will be worth something one day. But I don't know. I grew up with that kind of stuff, like variant covers and comics in the 90s. So like even now, like I'm very 90s, like late 80s, early 90s oriented with my designs and my concepts and everything like that. Oh, and one last thing. My comic book, the entire story takes place on the first day of school. The whole thing.
Yes,
so,
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, so like the first comic in this is kind of like the night before where he's just hanging out with his friend. They're just chatting it up about the next day. Then the next day it's like getting up, going to school. Like that's the second issue. And then like the third issue is them like orientation. And the fourth one is the first class. And the fifth issue is actually the walk from the fifth class to like the first class to the second class, and the whole thing is just them in the hallway, and it's like 38 pages of them just hanging out in the hallway and messing around. Because there's so much that happens, and I really want to tell like every little thing in like someone's life. Like when you think about your first day, like at one point I have one person freaking out looking for a bathroom, but it's a new school, they don't know where it is, they're like running around, and they're missing like one of their classes doing it, and they're like, oh my god. So I don't know, I try to make it like super real. Like I had a lot of first days of school in my growing up because my parents moved around a lot, so I try to put as much of those experiences in my comic.
I like that. I like that you're really truly speaking to a group of people. First of all, we all have first days, but you're also the fact that you're taking into consideration people who might go through this often and kind of putting the fun and anxieties of what it is to be doing a first day. And the idea that like, you get to savor the first day, and the fact that it's not just like one issue the first day, next issue a bunch of days later. Because sometimes when I read comic books, it feels like, they skip over a lot of stuff. There's like, oh, this was, this.
But it's because that's not their story. Like a lot of times, like if they're going to tell a school story, their story is the whole semester or something like that. Like if it's a school story, because they want to get somewhere like that. It's really... I guess it's like what I'm kind of doing is I'm telling my story that's like in between those panels that you would read from that.
Yeah.
So it's like just having like you'll have like two people that are talking here and you're going to focus on them. And at the same time, these people are talking, so it's going to cut to them, and it's just some of them's just hanging out. Some of them might be like fronting, pretending to be something that they're not really, because they're like, they want to be cooler, they want to be more popular at this school. Or you'll have cliques too, like some of them aren't really nice, some of them seem nice, and some of them, like all that kind of stuff. And like what you get in the first day is really intense too, because everybody's got their masks on. It's so rare you'll have somebody that just shows up and they're like, "Hi, this is me, and I'm 100% the way I am." Like it happens. Like I'm not trying to, like, I'm not bragging or nothing, but I'm really one of those kind of people. Like, I'm really like, "Hello, this is my name, and I love Gundams." And then they'd be like, "Gun what?"
You said
especially
gun, call
90s,
security.
like, nobody knew what that was. Like, we had Gundam Wing, and nobody watched that. It was like a political anime. You were hoping robots would show up, and they just talk about politics for like 10 episodes.
I fucking love that. It was a political anime. Kids didn't understand. I remember Ta-Nehisi Coates was writing Black Panther at one point, and when he took over, he made it super political, and it wasn't like action heavy. And I remember reading it and being like, "What child is gonna read this? This is the most."
That's it. Especially if you market it to a kid. Like let's say you show the cover and you've got like the Black Panther looking like a badass, and he's like diving off of like some tree, and you see he's about to kill these two people, and then when you read it, he dives off the tree, lands, and sits next to them and starts talking about the economical growth now that they've introduced like trade routes in Wakanda, and you're like, well, surely this doesn't go on. Oh, it does. Oh, geez. And as an adult, you might read this, and some of the writing might be clever, and you're like, this is actually kind of funny. But like as a child, you're just like, when is he gonna punch someone?
Oh, dude, there are full-on scenes where they're having like council meetings, and I'm thinking in my head, I just want someone in the council room to try and attack T'Challa so that T'Challa can kick some ass, or Shuri, because I was just like, don't get me wrong, Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote an amazing comic book, and then when he went on to do the second run where it was like the Galactic Empire of Wakanda, not just set in Wakanda, but some other space story that I didn't even get to finish reading, I should go back to, but that one was way more action and way more crazy, and like had to do kind of like a little bit with like slavery and xenophobia, and I was just like, okay, now we're getting into what I was hoping Ta-Nehisi Coates would have done the first time.
But sometimes it takes a bit of a run to get into your groove. And also sometimes you need to prove yourself the first time around before certain like publishers will be like, because the second you get into things like xenophobia and racism, the main publisher is going to take like a magnifying glass. Oh wait, I got one right here, and they're just going to be like, and if they don't like it, you are in trouble. Like you're going to have time. They're not going to let you write another run. So you do your first run, you kind of set it up, and then afterwards, then you can kind of slowly bring it up to them, and they're like, well, you know what? Your first thing was written pretty decently. Go with it. Because the last thing they want is another, like, well, sorry for all you fans out there, but another Brie Larson going out there and just saying whatever is on her mind. And, like, literally, like, just digging a hole for herself in Marvel. And they're just like, oh, man, please stop talking, lady. And, she stood up for a lot of strong things. It was just her way of saying it.
Yes, I do remember that at the time when she was trying to explain it, that the way she worded it offended people, but at the same time, I definitely understood what she was trying to say, and I was just like, I mean, damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? That was one situation where I feel like, to be honest though, I feel like no matter what she said, people were going to jump on her, because people were already jumping on her when she was cast in the role. They're like, she doesn't look like Carol Danvers. It's just like, no one looks like Carol Danvers. She's a fictional character that's been drawn differently by 100 different artists. Who exactly are you thinking of when you think Carol Danvers? Anyways, that's
it's true, man.
That's actually one of the things. You're an artist. You're a comic book artist. What's it like when you draw a character and, like, first of all, you draw a character, and if anyone ever draws them like after you or like does a like a demo or a draw in my style one of your characters, what does it feel like when you see that?
All right. I got like two things to say about that. The first thing is that I do draw a lot of fan art because that's what sells at conventions, and the fan art helps pay for my comic. So I have gotten, like, I've been going to conventions for over 10 years, so I get more than my share of people that'll walk by, look at my drawing of like I don't know, like the Ninja Turtles, and be like, ugh, no, that's not for me. And I'll draw them because I kind of draw like a mix between anime and American style. Not everybody loves that. And so, like, I'll get little comments here and there about this. you learn to get thick skin and brush it off, and that in turn allows you to become more humble when people do your own stuff.
Okay.
And another thing is that because because I've had quite a few people draw like fan art to my own comic book,
Cool.
and I'm 100% always going to be supportive of that.
That's
I don't
awesome.
care what kind of style they do it in. I don't care what kind of drawing. It's just I'm 100% supportive because
That's
the thing
cool.
is that my comic isn't Marvel. It's not DC.
Yeah.
I'm not a multi-trillionaire. I'm like some struggling artist living in his little apartment trying to make things work. Like so many other people out there, especially when like self-publishing is an arm and a leg, and I don't even have time to market it because I spend so many hours making it. So it's really like when people are willing to technically market it for me by drawing fan art of my stuff, I mean, I'm all for it. I always look at it and I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome. This is awesome.
That is
So I definitely understand like the whole beat, especially like with, the whole Brie Larson thing.
Yeah.
It's just, and at one point too, like I wasn't a huge fan, but a lot of that had to do with, like Brie Larson didn't write that film.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
I never would have taken a character that's as laid back and I guess like the strong, quiet type like Brie Larson in the film. She came off like that, and tag team her like to say this is our Marvel film where we're gonna make women first in this one and show a strong woman that can literally beat up everyone in the Marvel universe, no problem.
Yeah.
She's the best thing ever, and now we're gonna partner her up with one of the most iconic, charismatic actors of all time.
Samuel Jackson.
We'll just put Samuel L. Jackson in there, and it's like, what are you doing, Marvel? You are front running this girl to become the new Iron Man. Like she was gonna be front row and center, and you literally washed her out with such a powerful, strong. He wasn't supposed to be the lead.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like, oh, it's like those aren't. Like I feel like a lot of it is just not her fault, It's just it sucks. It's
I
just
still love the movie though.
Bad hand.
I still love the movie. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies, and I say that because I've always been a Carol Danvers fan. I think the character is super interesting. I like her relationship with Spider-Woman. I loved her relationship when her and Rhodes got together and they were dating in the comic book.
I love when she went out with Parker. When she went out with Peter Parker, it was so awesome.
Yeah.
It was cool for a while. Like Peter Parker would always like hang out on her back and she'd just fly around. Man, and Spidey's villains would show up and they start shooting at him, and then she'd just get in the way and then she'd beat them up like nothing, and you're like, oh, Spidey. It was cool.
But that's it, right? Like I feel like in the comic book the character has such a cool story. Civil War 2, some questionable decisions were made, which I thought it felt almost like they did that to tear the character down a little bit for no reason.
Yeah.
Because that storyline really makes her look just like a crazy person, like
well, like Iron Man in Civil War 1.
Yeah.
Sorry for all of you Team Iron Man people, but Iron Man caused all of those problems.
Yeah. Dude, I've had that discussion recently
Even
with someone.
in the comics, like he teamed up with the bad guys.
Yep.
He like everything he did was just terrible.
Yeah. He was the villain of that story. He's the villain of Civil War 1, which is why
but for all the right reasons, right?
Yeah.
That was like the hard twist.
Yeah, he's just like, I was just trying to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
Which is and that's the thing. I feel like in comic books, whenever they have characters say, I'm trying to make the world a better place, but they go to the extreme to do it, it's always this wild story. It's Civil War. It's Civil War 2. It's like, Reed Richards in whatever story he's doing where he's throwing people into some other negative realm to try and protect people. There's always those.
And what's not fair about that too is that you brought up Reed Richards, and like right now we're just talking heroes. They always kind of get like the bottom end.
Yeah.
Like if they're like, I was just trying to make the world a better place, you're like, how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
But then let's take somebody like Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
Or like Otto Octavius, like Doc Ock when he was Superior Spider-Man, like all these people that were in the same position.
Yeah.
Or Magneto, obviously, case in point of everyone's favorite. Well, arguably Doom is similar, but still, like having characters like that literally say the same lines, you're like, oh man, if only he had pulled it off.
Yeah.
And yet the whole time you're wanting to root against this guy, but they write them so well where you're just like, I want them to win. But then when Reed Richards does the same thing, you're like, I hated you, Reed, and I always hated you.
You're a monster.
And when he's like, I just wanted to make it better, you're like, Yeah, I still don't like you though. Like it's just not fair. Like I feel bad for them, you know? Oh man, like it's just the bad guys get all the gold.
Because there's no expectations, right? Like that's the main thing. There's no expectations, and then when you're a hero, there's high expectations. So when you're a hero and you start doing things that are questionable, it's just like, well, I mean, you're obviously a monster. What? I just didn't I didn't let this person cross the road because it was dangerous. Yeah, but that's a monster thing to do. Meanwhile, the villains are just powering through downtown. No one's getting to do anything they want. It's just like that seems like something a villain would do. It's a weird analogy, but you saw where I was going with that. When you're writing your comic book, well, first off, you're writing your comic book. Are you also working on any other side comics? Because I know you have that one. Or are there any like? No, you're just like
No, just this one. Like, I got a whole bunch in the old noggin. Like even before writing that one, I have like 5 or 6 different stories that I had written down. Because that's another thing. Like I watch when I'm drawing. Like I said, very lonely. I can't just listen to music. Like I've been drawing my whole life since I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I'm 35 now, so music doesn't do it for me. So usually in the corner I'll play like The Simpsons. I usually go through season 2 to season 10, and then I just repeat those seasons.
Oh, interesting.
I've seen them. I love them, especially like the ones Conan O'Brien wrote on, like season 5, season 6. They're they're my favorite. But like I've seen them so much that I can just play it in the background and I feel less lonely. But I watch a lot of movies too, and I watch tons of Mystery Science Theater.
Oh, cool.
And so I watch a lot of things like this. So oddly enough, I pick up on a lot of writing tactics that a lot of, I guess, some people don't always cue in on. But like because I'm usually listening more than I'm watching, I'm always like, huh. So when I write my stories, I usually write it from start to finish, like the whole thing. So even the story I'm doing now, I come out with a new issue every year, but I'm not writing a new issue every year. My story's already written. I just have to do the drawing, and that takes forever.
Yeah.
So when it comes to dialogue, I might modify things here and there because, you know, as time goes by, I become better at writing, and I'm like, oh, now that this character, I've evolved them in this kind of direction, I might have them speaking with a bit more slang than I would have in the first issue, so I slowly build up on these characters, and it's just kind of things where, like, because of this, I already have my ending, and so I'm just,
I was just gonna ask.
working through it, and I find that there's a lot of shows or a lot of movies or a lot of things like that where they don't do that because they don't know how long they're gonna last. You know, shows that are on syndication could last 10 years or more, and so they don't have a real ending. It's kind of, some people might write like a rough draft and then think, okay, we'll kind of end it like this, and I guarantee you, after 5 years of being on television, it's gonna change. So that's why, like, I and when it changes, it's rare. Like, I can't say it's for the better or for the worst. It's just, it's rare that you get good endings. And I watch a lot of anime too, and oh my gosh, so many terrible endings. Like, we can't all have Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhoods, you know? Like, it's just, it just doesn't happen. So that's why, like, I really wrote my whole ending so that way there will be structure and there won't be any plot holes too. That's something that freaks me out. Like, I'll watch something and then a series will end, and I'll be like, what about this and this and this? And they'll just be like, we're not going to mention that. I'm looking at you, Avatar The Last Airbender, Zuko's mom.
Oh, interesting. Oh, yes, because they do show her in that one episode, and then you never get any updates on anything related to her.
No, I heard that maybe in the comic books there's something that has to do with it, but that's just disappointing. Especially since they came out with 4 seasons of Avatar Korra, where at one point I believe they even in there they mention it at one point. But they don't talk about it. They're just like, what happened to that? And someone's about to say it and they cut it off, so they kind of turn it into a joke, which, you know, it's all right. It's just anyway, I try to avoid as much as that as possible, but
we appreciate as a fan who consumes a lot of content. Thank you, because that is something that definitely drives me crazy.
Yeah.
The loose threads. I mean, you talked about your partner's sewing stuff. When there's a loose thread, you nip that. You cut it. You don't just leave loose threads hanging because someone pulls on it and unravels your story. And I'm sure if someone went deep enough into Avatar, the Airbender, and started to look at the Zuko's mom's angle and started to question things, it's just like, well, I mean, it feels like a huge, big part of why the character is a certain way, why the father is angry and aggressive. And it starts to, like, you know, it plays a role, but you've never shown us what happened, so...
Yeah, and so these are like little things that like I try to avoid, like crazy. But because most of my comic all takes place in one day, all of it's pretty much just character development. You know, like it's not going to be like My Hero Academia. All of my creatures in my comic have crazy powers, crazy abilities. They can do all sorts of things. But I'm not gonna have. I'm saying it right now, like right here, make it official. They
Official.
are not
Exclusive.
gonna go to gym class and all start fighting each other, because that is not the message I'm going to show. That is not what it's about. Most schools would never do something like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of my comic has to do with multiple races that were at war for a long time. So
Oh,
sending
okay.
them all to the same school that they're being forced to be going to, by the way, like they're forced to send their kids to the same schools. I am not gonna have the gym teacher be like, now let's fight it out. Like, there's no
Yeah.
way. So
no dodgeball.
the most kind of violence you're gonna see in this, well, I guess rather than violence, let's say like action is
Yeah.
mostly gonna be like rom-com style things where it's like maybe somebody likes somebody, or they're kind of shy around someone, or like I said, they have to go to the bathroom and they're freaking out. So I'll use crazy action fighting style angles while they're running through the school. Like first they're walking, but then they have to go, so they start going faster, and then they're like running, and they're like, where the hell is this? So
That's
it's just
dope.
like weird little things like that I like to put in there.
I like that the description you have sounds so animated, and I like that the like, because in your head, that's the thing that's cool for a comic book creator. I feel like in your head, from panel to panel, you see the things that happen in motion between the panels, and that must be so interesting. And it's like, what's it like for you if someone says like, have you ever had someone say to you like, oh man, like I get this to this, like I understand and I see what this was and how this connects?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. So there's multiple artists that I really, really love, and for different reasons. Like let's say like Joe Madureira. I love Joe Mad's artwork, but I was never a big fan of his storytelling. But his drawings are so incredible. And then you take someone like Frank Miller, whose artwork, especially in his earlier years, it's unique and it's a style. But at the same time, it's very amateurish, and he uses a lot of blacks to hide his inability to do anatomy at the time. But his storytelling is like
next level,
incredible. Like you could remove the text from all of like his Dark Knight and just go through it, and you would know everything that's going on. You'd be able to follow it. So like I'm one of those weird people. Like I said, when it comes to watching shows and things like that, I kind of like overanalyze things and I like study things. And when it came to like making a comic book, I really wanted, like, you could remove most of the text and you'd understand what's happening. But the thing is that there's so much text because people are talking and hanging out at the same time. It's just that I make it very, very clear. Like all my panels, it goes from here to here to here. And like even without the text, your eye's going to go where I need it to go. I kind of like subconsciously manipulate you to look where I want you to
magician.
look. And you know, like any great storyteller is good at doing that in drawing. And I've always known that, so I work really hard to be able to try and do that myself. Like every page, I try to do that kind of thing because I want it. I'm trying to compete with Marvel and with DC, you know? Like, I can't possibly do that, but the print quality of this trade paperback is the same that you would get with Marvel or DC. It's the same kind of super paper, and that's kind of why, like, it costs me an arm and a leg, but I think it's worth it. And, again, you know, like, just doing, like, my paneling and my coloring and everything needs to be that level. But even though I keep calling it a comic and I draw it like a comic and my storytelling is more American, all the artwork is super anime, like super manga. And I would love for this to be an anime. Like, I could picture being one of those, like, 10-episode animes where, like, from episode 1 to episode 10, it would be the series. Then there'd be, like, an OVA special, which would be a holiday special. And then after that, there'd be a movie, and the movie would be, like, a school trip. So that's, like... I already have this all mapped out in my head.
I was gonna say, man, that's pretty fucking cool. Like you're describing, like there's a whole evolution in this world for you, and I think that's cool. Like when you say you have the end of the story for this first one, it's cool that you also kind of had the vision of where it could go next. And that, I mean, that's not always easy for people. You know, it's like creating a world and then releasing it out there, and then sometimes there's a feedback from the audience, and you might start to course correct based on what they're saying. But in your case, because you have the plan, you're really planning to push through with it, and I think that sounds like, I always respect that more. I think that's more fun personally.
Thanks. And about the course correct with like fans, that's another thing that like I try to avoid it because I've seen it too much over the years where you'd have like a huge crew that are like, do this, and then the artist or the writer would do it.
Yeah.
And it would kind of undermine either the rest of the series that had come out before then or going forward because that person, like he or she didn't plan on that at first.
Yeah.
Now they're writing around it.
Yeah.
and it's not as it doesn't come out as naturally. Like it's really hard to write it when you've got like a restriction, like certain restrictions that you put yourself in the first place.
Yeah.
My only dilemma is time. Like I said,
Yeah.
it takes me a year to come out with each comic. I'm gonna be finished my I just finished my sixth one like a week ago, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna probably put it up on my Etsy like at the beginning of July, and then it's just that's number 6. I've got like 15 issues. I literally
Oh,
have
wow.
like another 7 years of or 8 years of drawing to finish this.
Have you ever thought of getting someone to work with you on it?
Yes, but
Okay.
I don't have the funds. It's
Okay.
expensive, and
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm somebody that believes in paying artists for their work
Of
too.
course.
Like, so if I did hire somebody to either help me fill in the flat colors
Yeah.
or help me with the publishing part, it's money I just don't have.
Yeah.
And when it like comes to spending money on the comic and spending money on the printing, and it's all too much.
Yeah. No, that's
And
fair.
when I'm drawing, I can't take contract work because I used to do tons of contract work, and that would help pay things.
Yeah.
But like spending like 10 hours doing contract drawings and then 5 hours drawing my comic, it was killing my hand. I wasn't enjoying myself. So that's, again, why I got the part-time job to help me pay for things.
Yeah.
And then I do like the occasional contract here and there, but that's kind of how it is.
Have you been adjusting to the quarantine / no convention situation right now?
That's
know-
kind of a nightmare for me. Like conventions, I usually like all the money I make at a convention, I'll use it to fuel the next one and the next one and the next one. And like to lose like my biggest one in the summer and then all the other ones being canceled, like
Yeah.
it's rough.
Yeah.
But like it's 1 year off, so I'm telling myself, all right, I'm going to work on the next issue to my next comic, and rather than printing a physical copy to this one, maybe next year when I print my physical one, I'll combine the two together, so it'll be like a 60 or 70 page comic instead, and
Okay.
I'll try and go forward from there. Like, I don't know, I'm going to try and do it like that.
No, I think that's cool, man. Again, I like that there's a plan. I feel like
Yeah.
there's some people I speak to who like to go with the flow of things, and I think that's fair. You know, some people like to do that, and that's a different way of approaching it. But I think I'm one of those like logical people. I like when things are like structured and I understand step by step. So whenever I see the freeform artist style, I'm just like, good for you. I could never do it. But talking with you, I'm just like, oh, I get this. Like, there's a plan. There's this. There's an execution. I ask a question, you have a very precise, logical answer right away to explain why this, and this has to be done this way, or why this can't be done that way. And that's cool. I think if anything, that helps with, for anyone who's like interested in looking at the comic, your mind frame is the type of thing that you applied to the comic book, and I think people should definitely check it out because you'd be getting a real solid story that's from someone who's dedicated to telling this specific story, and they're not going to waver
thanks,
from
man.
that. Yeah, no, that's cool. I am one of those people that it's like I'm not easily influenced, but if everyone started watching my pod and was just like, you should do this with it, I know I'd probably be like, yeah, maybe I'll try that. But I like that you have a plan and.
Yeah, but when you have a podcast and people make suggestions, you could try it out on one episode.
True.
Like, it's not
that's
something that will necessarily reverberate for the rest of your career during podcasts. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
True.
Like, for people doing comics, like, I've met some people that just, like, they pick up a page and they literally just start working on that page, and that's page 1. And I can't even do that. Like, I literally will do, like, thumbnail sketches of all my pages, and I do it with like a rough script, and then afterwards, like I kind of like once I'm done that, it's like I work on top of that, and I work on top of that, and on top of that until everything gets polished with each step. So this way, like, I'm doing everything as a whole, and again, that kind of cues into like plot holes or mistakes here and there, even page story structure and stuff like that. Like, I always want it to be really clean and really nice. And also something that, oddly enough, I didn't do it since my first one, but maybe around like my third one, I realized I was having trouble doing certain characters every now and then because I'm not always looking at them. So at that point, that's when I made like these.
Cool.
And these are like character design sheets. And I have like one for every one of my students, all my teachers in my comic, and I always look at them, even when I do my little sketches, when I'm coloring them all the time. So that way they always have the same personality traits, the same kind of jaw, the same kind of eyes. Because oddly enough, like, a lot of people don't do that either. And you'll look at a character at the beginning of a comic, and let's say you look at the same character like 20 pages in, and like maybe that character is not drawn the same. You know, like, and that happens quite often. Really professionals don't do that, but like I'd say like when you're like in the middle, you tend to start to learn about this sort of thing,
Hmm.
and then when you're just starting off, most people don't even think about it.
Hell, dude, I'll be honest. I've seen professionals do that. I've seen
Yeah.
there's an X-Men comic that I read once where Storm is drawn one way at the beginning, and by the end of the comic was drawn like quite a bit differently. Like I was in one of my nerd groups, people were like posting up panels being like, "Yo, what happened between like page 1 and page 15 of this issue?" And like it was funny because it was a big conversation in those nerd groups. Like people were like,
Wow. Was
genuinely,
it like, because sometimes that could be a different artist that got on board, or
no,
let's
no,
say one inker inked the first half, then another
uh,
inker inked the second half, and it might be that that inker is just a different, like, has a
yeah,
different style of inking, so it really, it's inking plays a massive role
interesting.
in comics. Like, it's not like these, like I remember back in the day, like pencilers would just do very sketchy pencils, and nowadays pencils are really tight
Hmm. Hmm.
because they want the inker to follow the lines perfectly.
Exactly,
Because
yeah.
back then, like you would draw like a sketchy drawing and then give it to your inker, and your inker would be like, well, I'm not really sure which line to follow, so I'm going to follow these lines. And at that point, it's like the inker is the one doing a lot of the drawing
Yeah.
because they're the ones choosing out of all the lines. So you can have art that you're really, literally like, this doesn't even look like that artist, like the
Ah,
artist that
damn.
sketched it in the first place.
Yeah.
And so I've seen that happen often in older comics.
Interesting. Okay, I don't know if that's what the case was for this one, but that's good to know. That's something I was never aware of. I never even thought of at the time. That's cool.
Yeah.
Though. I like this. I like that I'm learning stuff. Oh, dude, you mentioned it at one point. You talked about late '80s, early '90s comic books. There's a documentary called The Image Revolution on Prime that talks about how Image got started and the whole movement away from Marvel and DC. Were you ever an Image kid?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I haven't seen that documentary, but I've seen other documentaries
Mm.
about all the people that work together to create Image.
Yeah.
So, like I'd see things on like Jim Lee and obviously Todd McFarlane
Yeah.
and like that whole crew. I know Scott Campbell did some work for them back then too. And like, it's just like, I loved Image. I was a massive, massive Spawn fan. Like
Oh,
every kid in the 90s, like
yeah.
he, like, I still like, man, I think he is the best black superhero of all time. I'm straight up saying this. He's just such a badass.
Yeah.
Everything about him, he's oh man, I love Spawn. I'm really a big Al Simmons fan, and like I love Spawn up to like issue like 50. Like I really hung in there, but after that it just kept going, and I was at that age where I'm like, well, I'm off to college now,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
can't afford comics. I have to pay rent. But I loved old school Spawn, and oh man, he was just really, really a great hero. And like, like Tom McFarlane's approach too, where he's kind of like, well, people loved Venom, so I'm gonna make him like Venom, and like he kind of took like
Yeah.
everything that was cool at the time. People love pouches, so let's put pouches everywhere. Thank you very much, like Rob Liefeld. And I'm saying this as a joke, but I actually love pouches too. Like I think when you've got like millions of little pouches to put things, and I know
Yeah.
that's like Rob Liefeld's like thing, and I love him for that because I was always like, oh, that's so legit. Like
It's
if you'd see
convenient.
Cyclops and he just has a regular belt, I'd be like, okay, but what if he doesn't have Kleenexes in there?
Yeah.
Or like, what if he needs like a little knife or
needs
something? I know he's got a
something.
laser. Well,
Yeah.
I know he's got like a force blast thing, or he can ask Wolverine. But I like to think that the leader would have certain things
Yeah.
on him.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
in case of,
Communication.
like tweezers. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like it's weird to say these, but if I was gonna go out on crazy like missions, most people you see going out on missions, like if they're like Navy SEALs and stuff, they've got a whole whack of pouches.
But
so
you know
it's
what?
like I'd like to imagine that.
Hell, all he like a pouch for a mirror would have been just a mirror so he could like redirect his
Oh,
blast would be the
That would
most
be amazingly cool.
so
he had the
simple.
pouches.
Yeah, exactly.
Dang, but that would have been awesome. But
Dude.
yeah, so I love all those pouches and stuff. So anyway, like the whole like Image thing, like
Yeah.
I think it was what was it, Hawk or Dark Hawk or something like that. I'd read those ones too back in the day.
Oh, Shadowhawk by
Shadowhawk, thank you. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
love
Shadowhawk was really
Shadowhawk.
awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know if Gen 13 was part of Image back then.
Yes. Yeah. Because
Yeah,
I just watched
so
the
I read
documentary.
Gen 13. That was great.
The documentary is super interesting, and a lot of the stuff that they talk about and the passion they had, I'm seeing in you talking about stuff. So that's why when you mentioned the like 80s, 90s, I was just like, okay, I like because they talk about like the beginning, and then when Robert Kirkman showed up, and Kirkman was like essentially just a fanboy that got hired to work with the people he was fans of. And it's just such an interesting thing to watch him be like, because at that point, Liefeld wasn't there, and then like they like people had like Top Cow had left, and then Top Cow was back, and then like Kirkman showed up, and he was just like, I don't like that you guys aren't all friends, because in my head I was gonna get to be friends with all of you, so I'm gonna make you all be friends again, and then just went about to make them all friends again. Like spoke to Liefeld, spoke to Larson, spoke to Silvestri, spoke to this guy, and was just like, can we all have a meeting? Let's just get this together. Stevenson is like publishing editor, and he's just like, okay, I guess we can try and make this work. And it was just kind of cool to watch how it all played out, and essentially just a fan being like, I want to hang out with all the people I admire, and I'm like, fuck, that'd be so dope.
That's cool. That's cool.
Because I didn't realize how much time talking about comic books is so much fucking fun. I wanted to talk to you about Flight and Flight Micro Mechas. Fight and Flight.
That's why we're here.
I know. We were like
I get so sidetracked so easily. I'm a very passionate person, so whenever I get into something, I'm like, oh.
It was great. I fucking love this conversation. We got to talk about so much dope shit, and like now I'm like, oh shit, we didn't talk about all the other stuff that we were supposed to talk about. But so for anyone who's watching this right now, I'm gonna be posting up links to it to explain a little bit more. There's actually a link if you're watching on Facebook, and I see a few people are watching on Twitch. There should be a link in the description that you guys can click on right now to go to the ideas page, ideas.lego.com, and you can just look up Fightin', so FIGHT''N Flight Micro Mecha. And yeah, can you tell me what this is in a minute or two that we have left?
So when I was really young, like 90s kid over here, early 90s, there was this show I loved like crazy called Exo Squads. I don't know if you've ever seen this show, but this show was dope. Like, you had these guys that got in these robots, and it was out at the same time as Mech Warriors. And I remember having this argument with this friend at the time back then where he's like, Mech Warriors is the best. And I watched the whole show, and I'm like, it's just not as well written. You know, like, people die in Exo Squads. It's hardcore. And I'm like this 10-year-old kid freaking out about this. And so, like, I had built my own Exo Squads out of Lego. Like, I would build the same vehicles like in the show, and I'm like, this is so sweet. And like, I would build all these bigger robots over the years. And then at one point, like, I started I wanted to go smaller and smaller and smaller because I like the idea of using the smallest amount of pieces to build the most amount of detail. And then I stumbled upon like a few groups of people back in like the early 2000s that used to make their own like miniature robots as well.
Yeah.
And like, we would all make like the body frames for them so that they were fully articulated. They could do all this stuff. I can show you one I made about like maybe like 9 years ago. So I've got like this guy right here. I don't know how well you can see this guy, but this guy is like one of the first ones I made, and like, he's fully posable. You know, like, you can move the arms around. Like, usually like the hip can move, the legs can move. Like, there's tons of joints all over the place. Yeah. Karate kick, and I had made him, and because I had always wanted to submit something to Lego Ideas because I make a lot of things out of Lego. Like, I made a Turtle Van, I made the Batmobile from animated series, and I try to make them as accurate to the show as possible.
On your own,
100%. Actually, give me like 1 second. I'll see if I can't like get like 2 or 3 things to show you really fast.
Yeah, show me the Batmobile. Guys, definitely look up Exo Squad. It's EXO Squad. These mech suits look pretty damn cool, and I definitely see what he's talking about, because if you guys have looked at his Lego Idea page for Fightin' Flight Micro Mechas, you can see the inspiration behind the suits. There's different pages that you can click on to look at them posable, and then as they're transformed.
So
yeah, he's back.
So sorry.
No, I was just explaining about the mechs.
So, super quick, like, I make my own stuff. So, like, this is animated series Batmobile.
Hot damn, you made that yourself?
And I don't follow instructions. Like, I just kind of make it myself. And I even made the piece that this slides open, just like in the old animated series, and then it can slide shut. And then I got like Batman in there, and I build all the computers and a steering wheel and he's got like his driving, like his gear shifter and everything.
That's
like,
so cool.
I really want it to be legit. I have like the party wagon from Ninja Turtles.
Whoa, dude, that's so awesome. You made this all by yourself?
Yeah. And like, the back piece here can open up, and you got like Raphael back there ready to jump out. We of course have like the action where Mikey slides open. And I have it so you can actually pull the top off, and then you can like see all the turtles inside.
Dude, that is so cool.
Met one of my all-time artist heroes, Kevin Eastman, at the Montreal Comic Con, and I had him sign it, and he was like, "Can I have this?" And I was like, What do you tell your hero when he asks you for something that like you spent God knows how many hours on, and you wanted him to sign it so you could put it up on a wall? I was like, do I have to?
Do you?
Oh my gosh!
Do you
And I
order
got
the?
one more.
Oh yeah.
This one's pretty retro, so I don't know how much of you are gonna remember this one, but this is a Cadillac from the future. It's a series called Cadillacs and Dinosaurs,
Oh my god.
and I actually made like the whole front opens up, and I built an engine in there,
Ah,
and then
damn.
in the back I have like all of his gear to like try and survive and stuff, like
That
in
is
the frontier with all the
amazing.
dinosaurs. So I basically build these sort of things, and I ended up on like this forum where like we build little mechs all together and stuff like that, and I
Yeah.
wanted to build something for Lego Ideas, and I was thinking of showing these licensed ideas, but I realized that like there's a lot of licensed products out there, especially with ideas where
Yeah.
they're gonna come out with like a lot of cool things and things that I love. Like I have the Back to the Future car, and
Yes,
I
me
have
too.
like the Ghostbuster car, and it's
Same.
like these are amazing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I like to try and support original stuff too.
Yeah.
So I was going to submit just like the robot I showed earlier that doesn't transform, but then I realized that between the group of people that I hang out with and stuff, a lot of people make these sort of things, and I actually wouldn't think that it would be fair for me to submit something
Mhm.
where I did the work, but it also is a collaboration of other people's help to be able to get to that point.
Yeah.
And if I had done that, I think it would be cheap, and I wouldn't. It's just I would feel bad about
Yeah.
it, because it's like it's not 100% me,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of like other people that make the robots, and some of the people in the forums I would be with that would be like, well, what the heck, like let's say hypothetically I win, they'd be like,
Hey,
we
where's our?
made these too,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I don't like that. So what I did is I took it apart, and then from scratch I built my own frame, and one that specifically could transform, and this took me weeks to do because when you're working with something so small,
Yeah. I was gonna
having it
say.
be able to transform without taking parts off was one heck of a challenge. Like it really was a lot of work.
Yeah.
So basically, like I can show some to you really quick. I've got this one here. This one's Unit 2. And like the other ones, it's fully articulated. Like you can move the arms, the legs, like everything, the head. It all moves around.
Love it.
And I don't know if you can notice here, because on my main Legos page, I didn't show it, but I actually since then added little stickers. So I had these decals from like old robot toys I had, like some of them were Gundams and other things that are like, don't step here and avoid this and all that. And I started putting those stickers all over these robots because I thought it would be cool.
That is cool.
Here's one of the same robots you just saw, but this one's in its like vehicle mode.
Yeah.
So it kind of looks like one of those futuristic helicopters you'd see in like
That's
a cyberpunk.
Unit 3 from what I see.
Pardon?
That's Unit 3 from what I'm seeing on the site.
Yeah, this one's Unit 3. And then afterwards, I've got like my Unit 1 that's in like a whole docking bay over here.
Oh shit.
So I can actually, hold on.
That looks
It's got like
so
little arms
badass.
holding her. Unit 1 is a police unit piloted by a female pilot. And let's just put her down here. And there we go. Oh yeah, I created backstories for all these characters
Yeah,
too.
I see that too.
And I tried making everything like as reminiscent to like past animes and series as possible, but mashing them all up, like with hold on, let's see if I can come on here really quickly. So for my Unit 1, I wrote down that the pilot's name is Kita Gurin, which is like really an homage name to a very popular anime franchise. I'm not going to say which ones,
Yeah.
but all of it is kind of like in good fun, like it's kind of like a joke making fun of all of these things that I loved too as a childhood. And I would have like background stories for each pilot. Like for the blue one, growing up in a family of law enforcement, she follows their footsteps as the hotshot rookie with something to prove. Learning to pilot mecha from her father at such a young age, she's incredibly skilled.
Hot damn.
But Unit 2 is my favorite one because this is the first one that I built. This one turns into like an actual plane. If you don't transform it completely, you can put it in the Gerwalk mode for those of you that love Macross. I didn't show that off in my Lego Ideas page because it's too much on the nose, so I avoided that one. But this guy's name is Pat Izumi, which is based off another sweet mecha anime from back in the day. And his small village was attacked by bandits. His grandfather's last words directed him to a hidden trapdoor in the basement, which housed an old yet well-kept military mecha. He saved his village, utilizing pure raw talent and hidden unlocked potential.
Hot damn, dude.
It doesn't get more anime than that.
Super Defense Blaster, macro .55 missiles, DRI boosters. Like, there's full... Dude, so essentially what you did here is similar to your comic book writing. You wrote stories. You developed a full universe around these... This is so cool. Arc
Yeah, I did.
hanger.
And like all the weapons you see too are all homages to things as well. Like you said, like macro .55 missiles. I mean, that's very similar to Macross if those five were S's. And DRL boosters for those of you that remember the movie. And Super Defense Force was the old show, so he's got like a Super Defense blaster, you know, like, and all of them kind of have like, I created like loadouts for all of them,
Yeah.
and they're all kind of like, like I changed it all in a way so it's like I won't get like, and even hypothetically, because I know that there's some people that saw this and they're like, no, that's too much like Transformers. Names are just names. It's the kind of thing where if this gets to 10,000 supporters and Lego actually builds it, Lego could easily be like, okay, the names were really funny and cute, but we're not going to put them in there because we don't want to take the chance that Transformers is going to come after us because you named this the Arc, like the Arc Hanger, or like, you know, like this is called the Prime Matrix, energy something, you know, like at one point they're like, we'll just change the names. So I think that I made it in a way that I could easily avoid any problems with those kind of companies if ever that comes up. Because I thought of that too. I had to, you know, like so many people will make things like a beautiful Zelda Breath of the Wild set where it's like, I would buy that. But Nintendo's not going to say yes. Like I can't tell you how many Zelda sets have actually hit the 10,000 and within the same minute, you already have a note from Lego saying no.
Oh, shit.
Like Nintendo doesn't want it. And it's sad. And then another thing has to do with pieces too. You know, like all my pieces for all these robots, all of them together come up to about 400 and like.
Yeah, I saw like 490 or something. I think you wrote.
It's 452. So 452. The whole thing comes up to 452. That's another thing where like I'd be on these idea pages where there's these incredibly well built things, and it'll be like 8,000 pieces, and I'm like,
good God,
that's like they're not gonna make that. Like that's too much, and it's such a shame because some of these things are so epic. Like I almost would love it if it did make it they could be like, you subscribe and every couple of months you pay $100 and they send you parts and then after like a year 2 years you have all the parts, you know, so you don't have to spend the $3,000 in one shot at what it would normally cost.
Hot damn, dude, this is dope. I really want people to check it out. Fightin' Flight Micro Mecha. If you just look that up on ideas.lego.com, people, please do, because this is some really dope, like, it's fucking cool. I really think this is really cool. And, you know, Eric, this was a great conversation, man. I really appreciate that you took the time today to geek out with me, and we got to talk about so many fucking cool things. Comic books, superheroes, Exo Squad, Lego. Like, this is a dream come true type conversation. These are all the things I fucking love talking about. Do you want to tell people the social media? Like, where can they check out your stuff?
Oh, yeah. So for the Lego thing, like Brian had said, is that it's on Lego Ideas. If you look up Fight and Flight Micro Mecha, you should be able to find it pretty easily. Even Micro and then Mecha, you'll find it pretty fast, I think. After that, like if you want access to my comic book and all that, it's basically on my Etsy page. Like if you just follow me on Facebook, it's my name. It's Erik with a K and then Terren, T-E-R-E-N, and then Mullins. So if you find that Facebook page, from there you'll find everything. Everything connects to my Facebook page. So Instagram and Etsy and all of that sort of thing. Awesome, man.
I'm going to put all of those links, guys, so that you see all that stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Non-Journalist with Brian Holidae. Once again, Erik T. Mullins. Dude, thank you so much for coming through. This was a great conversation. We'll be back tomorrow, Geektastic Cypher at 6:30 here on, well, this is brianholiday.com, but you guys can also check it out at franklinarmstrong.com for Geektastic Cypher. We'll be over on the Franklin Armstrong page. If you guys are watching on Twitch or on Twitter, like I saw some people jumped in, thank you. I really appreciate it. This is a new thing I'm trying, where I'm trying to live cast, simulcast on multiple platforms at once, and it's been doing well, so I appreciate it. That's the whole thing, man. Erik, once again, thank you so much, dude. Take care.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Great. Peace, guys.